So who wants to hear about winter bee? I'll ask this. Who's ever had this belching beautiful hive in September, October, and all of a sudden you get to November and you kind of take a peek and now the numbers are starting to dwindle and it's dead by December, January, or February. So when the bee inspector for this county, bee inspector for Defiance, I see it all the time. It can't be dead. How did I lose this colony? Winter bees, you have to think 3 months ahead when you're working bees. You have to give them enough room. You have to give them enough resources. You have to give them enough room so they're not back laying in the brood area. Same thing, think about the grandchildren, great-grandchildren that are being raised right now in August, next month, are going to be the bees that are feeding the generation that's going to go through that October, November, December, January, and get you into that February, March. If those great-great-grandchildren going backwards are sick, how imagine it being so sick that you can't even get to the medicine cabinet. So the first generation, who takes an accurate mite count now every month? Or at least knows where their varroa load's at? Better beekeepers. And I'm not saying to be mean, understanding where your virus load is at and understanding where that load is at. It's just not the amount of mites that are coming up, so the mites aren't having the problem. It's all the virus load underneath. I went to a Michigan State beekeepers this spring I was one of the key speakers. There's 300 different viruses now. What do we see? Deformed wing virus and K-wing. And everything else in between is viruses and everything else that the bees get sick on. So I want you to think 3 months in advance, going backwards in August, that those bees are going to raise those next bees. So how many days for a worker to emerge? From egg to larvae, or egg to emergent? 21 days. So 21-day gap now, 21 days, 21 days. So OSBA, I'm here on, I'll switch hats. I'm here as your traveling speaker. OSBA, it takes about a month of all the key big speakers to put this together. And we ran it past Randy Oliver, we ran it past Reed Johnson, we ran it past Barb, we ran it past ODA. And we want to give you good information. So what are the fat winter bees? Are this, the ones that have the vitellogelin and the fat bodies to get through winter. When we inspect our bees into that fall, all of a sudden you to run search check the bottom, you got hundreds of dead bees. Does anybody panic at that point? Some people do, but those are all those summertime bees that are too skinny to even make it through that winter time. We want to have healthy winter bees coming in. Epigenetics is that short summer and it goes into those long winter cycles. So when we start shutting down, we need those bees to fatten up, tons of vitellogelin in their body. Remember, the bees are not warming themselves up like bumblebees. They're just humming, sitting and vibrating. Who's ever took a stethoscope or sat and listened to their hive in the wintertime? That nice low hum. You know, sometimes you won't hear it, sometimes you will, but also depending on genetics, also depending on the species, if it's buckfast or Italian or anything else, but they just clustered right around and they're keeping that colony in the high 90s. So they're just sitting and shivering. The bees that are on the inside are moving out to cool off. The bees that are hot, cold, are moving to the inside. So when this goes on, you have to have these bees ready. The main cluster is sitting at 95 with the queen and the brood. As we know, that Thanksgiving to Christmas is the perfect time for broodlessness. What treatment, so you're on a pop quiz, what treatment is perfect when they're broodless? Oxalic acid. Either the dribble or what? Vapor. And just a precaution, using vapor, I want you to use the respirator with the acid cartridge, not the carbon cartridge. So when we go through the winter survivability until the spring, this whole progeny has to get through all that entire time. You can't do a 911 in our area. It's not like I talked to my dad in Kissimmee, Florida. In January, he says, well, what are you doing in your bees? I'm watching them from the house. What are you doing? I'm raising queens. Up here is our main thing of Mother Nature is we've done the correct job in August, September in getting the mite counts low, no disease, and getting them into the spring. This is when all this stuff happens for us. Who loves buying nukes? Yeah. And what are nukes around here now? 180? Michigan, they've jumped to 240 in areas because of scarcity. Not everybody's making nukes. We're fighting the mass of the colony. In Ohio, it's just about August. That's when those days start to shorten up a little bit. We start going through a little bit of a dirt. That's when you see the neighbor mow the lawn and it turns brown. Everything in here starts to go down. The bees are a little bit more aggressive. And those bees that are born at that time, they come out, and what are the first bees when they come out? What are they? Nurse bees. And at the end, those are the nurse bees that are going to feed the next generation. So the colony should be well fed, prepared for winter months. So if we're talking August, and if we do get a dearth, what can you do? If the dearth continues, what happens? They turn around and start to go through, they eat, they turn around and start gobbling up their resources. If you don't take care of it at that time, they start eating each other. The house bees start eating the heads and they cannibalize the brood. And all of a sudden the queen shuts down. That's the time to do what? What can we do as beekeepers to keep that healthy and building up? Feeding. 1-to-1 sugar water. If your colony's light, what other one? 2-to-1 sugar water. If we're not making weight. And it also depends how much honey you leave on. I want to see, you're going to go start thinking about your whole winter process at this point. So when we're not right now, we're pulling our honey, everything's looking good. And then you got to make a decision. Do I leave how much for them? How much do I take? What's this August going to take with me? And then when we build up, we get asters, goldenrod, showy goldenrod, and a bunch of those. But do we count on that at the end of the season? No. Be prepared. If you want to, as a small beekeeper, if you have another box, take 2 or 3 frames of that capped honey and extract it, put it right back on. But don't be taking off a lot in the end. So you have enough resources, everything's in there. Anything that has raw foundation, pull it out because that does nothing for the bees. Encompass them with honey. Oh, this is not working. Here. So here we have a colony. The bees dislodge their wings and they're just gyrating. So it's like I tell little kids, what do you get with this? Friction. And that's what the bees are doing. The buzz in the wings, the bees are not heating this entire colony. Inside that hive, anything at the bottom or the top, if you take probes, it's going to be a completely different temperature at the bottom than it is at the top. So when you see that, they're consuming this heat. The heat's going to radiate a little bit. Where's all these dead bees? The summer bees. Right here at the bottom. A stick, coat hanger, clean those out. Do not panic. As a bee inspector, I had people clean that up and go,